Good morning, everyone. Dan Bates, President and CEO, Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, and we are thrilled that you could join us this morning for Coffee and Conversations. Another episode. We do this twice a month. So if this is your first one, thanks for joining us. I'm sure if you've been on here before, it won't be your last. So I see some familiar faces. We're going to do self-introductions in just a minute. Today is going to be a conversation from John Crenshaw and Andrea Larson with UFO Marketing, and they're going to tell you more about that in a minute. But this is about AI and how we use AI as a tool in marketing, which I think is very exciting. AI is a big topic of conversation right now. Some people are afraid to even talk about it. More are afraid to use it, and a few are embracing it and taking it forward. So I'm sure they're going to help us with all the questions that we have. So you know who I am. Let me tell you the protocol. We are, of course, on a Zoom meeting. And if you have any questions, I'm sure that John and Andrea will not mind if you interrupt them and ask questions. If you are on Facebook Live, we always have a much larger audience on Facebook Live. Type your questions in, and I believe Tiffany's going to repeat those questions to the speakers so we can get them answered. So with that, I think, Laura, we're going to find out who everybody else is, and then we're going to turn it over to our presenters.
Yep, definitely. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Merrill with the Greater Hamilton Chamber. Glad to have you all with us today. As I go around, tell me your company and your name. So, Rusty, we will start off with you.
Hi, I'm Rusty Allison. I'm with Advanced Online Insights.
Glad to have you with us today, Rusty. I think you'll get a lot out of this one. See, he's got the Google going on in the background. He's got some expertise. Derek?
Yeah, I'm Derek Chancellor with Lieutenant Governor Husted's office. I'm the Lieutenant Governor's Southwest Regional Liaison, and Lieutenant Governor Husted hosted an AI forum in Cincinnati last month. So I know it's a wave that's coming. We just got to get ahead of it, and I'm excited to hear what John and Andrea have to say. So.
Yep, we can't wait. It's definitely going to be an involving process for quite a while. Jennifer?
I am Jennifer Pierce. I'm with Modern Psychiatry and Wellness, and I do outreach and education and marketing.
Glad to have you with us today, Jennifer. Chris?
Thank you, Laura.
You're still muted, Chris. There we go.
I'm Chris Cannell. I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator for the Hamilton City Schools.
Glad to have you with us. And then this phone number, I know that is Ben Cornist. Would you like to introduce yourself, Ben?
Yes. Good morning. Yes, Ben Cornish with First Financial Bank, Community Outreach Officer and Financial Wellness Specialist.
Great. Glad to have you with us. And Tiffany?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Tiffany Grubb, Director of Marketing for the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
All right. So John and Andrea, we will let you take it away.
Great. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm John Crenshaw, president of UFO Performance Marketing. We're a marketing agency, and I'll get into my first few slides, cover a little bit about what we do. My business partner, Andrea, is on the line as well. I'll let her introduce herself briefly.
Hi, guys. I'm Andrea. I'm the COO of UFO, and we're excited to chat with you guys. We just joined the chamber about a month back and have been excited to kind of jump in and meet everybody and kind of see what everybody's doing, and we're excited for today. Definitely.
Yeah, so let me share my screen here, and I will jump into the beginning, and we'll talk a little bit about who we are, and then get into this a little bit. Let's see. All right, I should be sharing my screen now. Just stop me if anybody cannot see it. So today we're going to talk about revolutionizing marketing through AI. There's a lot of stuff that's been happening. AI is a big topic right now, and we're going to talk through specifically some examples of how we've been using AI as a marketing agency working with clients. So a little bit about us, our agency. We're a marketing agency, performance marketing agency, which means we do the type of marketing that drives some sort of measurable business result, and then we're involved in actually measuring that result. So a lot of analytics, a lot of things like SEO and paid search and Facebook ads and things like that. Andrea is my business partner. I founded this company back in 2007. We were originally Razorlight Media, and then we renamed recently. People often ask what's with the name UFO. So the definition of a UFO is any perceived aerial phenomenon that cannot immediately be identified or explained. And we think that that describes us pretty well. Our clients are often have a hard time explaining the results we get them. And then one of the most important components of that is you're not going to forget our name. You know, there's a lot of agencies out there, and our goal is to stand out as being different. I said we're a performance marketing agency, so we focus on things. The reason AI is really interesting to us is we really focus on how do we improve costs for clients? How do we get a bigger result on a smaller budget? How do we do, you know, and a lot of the stuff we do, things like SEO or paid search or Facebook ads, there's a lot of grunt work involved in that, right? A lot of just pulling keywords and scanning lists of keywords and organizing all that. And what's exciting about AI for us is the opportunity to streamline some of that grunt work a little bit, make it more enjoyable for the team members we have on board, and then really extend their reach and their capabilities. This is just a list of some of the clients we worked with in the past. We work with a broad variety of clients from banks to you know, e-commerce brands, direct to consumer. We've worked with some universities. A pretty broad range. And then, like I said, performance marketing, this is kind of the area we focus in, is organic search, paid search, reporting analytics, conversion rate optimization, things like that. Most things in the digital sphere, we will focus on. Okay, so how to think about current AI for marketing. So what we've found, and I'm going to mostly talk about what are called LLMs in this discussion, which stands for large language models. So large language models are things like ChatGPT. Facebook's got some models. There's some open source models out that do this as well. And what an LLM does is essentially take a huge data set of information, and it predicts the most likely answer to, for example, a question you might ask. So if you ask it a question, it's using this data, this massive data set. You know, for ChatGPT, it's most of the content on the internet. It's using that as its starting point. And then all it's really doing is making a statistical prediction of what is the most likely next set of letters or words that are the most likely accurate response to what you said based on all this data that it has. I've used the example before. It's kind of like, you know, imagine you landed on an alien planet and you heard the language and you sat there and you listened to people talking and you watched what they were doing. If you did that long enough, you could start to figure out what you could start to sort of predict what the right response was to certain things. Like if somebody came along and said hello, even if you didn't know they were saying hello, you could guess, looking at everybody else, how they're responding to that, what the correct response would be. In a way, at a much larger scale, that's kind of what an LLM is doing. It's just predicting what the next most accurate answer is based on its data set. So what that means is they're not going to necessarily command your marketing effort, but they're going to help quite a bit. You know, they're far from super intelligent, but what they're really great at is clearly defined tasks. And the way I think about this is they're great at things that a computer might be great at, which is, you know, if anybody here writes any code or has written any code or has had any code developed, we know a computer is going to do exactly what you tell it, often to a fault. What's great about LLMs is take that specificity, take that very specific instruction, but then add some flexibility to it, add a lot of flexibility to it, where the instruction doesn't necessarily have to be quite as defined as it would otherwise. So they're probably not going to solve the hard problems. They're not going to solve your marketing strategy. They're not going to solve, you know, understanding your customer, your client, or whoever that is, but they are going to help you do that a lot better and a lot faster. And a lot more enjoyable for the people on your team. So let's look at things LLMs tend to be pretty good for. They're good for content help. I have that in quotes because if anybody's ever tried to use ChatGPT for writing a blog post or writing content from scratch, it's really remarkable what it can do. But often you read it, you read what it comes out with, and you're like, that's not really what we want to say. You know, and even if it's what we want to say, it's not how we want to say it. So where it can help is sort of unsticking you from writer's block or something like that. It can also help with a little bit of research. Another great thing that I think is not talked about enough, and I think is going to be a huge use for LLMs, is turning unstructured data into structured data. So what's an example of that? Let's say I send an email to Andrea with a bunch of text in it explaining some numbers, right? Some client report. And I have the numbers in there, but it's not in a structured format. It's just a bunch of text, explanation, and then the actual performance numbers. Well, Andrea, let's say she wants to turn that into an Excel report or something like that, or put it in a data studio, a reporting tool online. She has to take that data out of the email manually and turn it into structured data, something that a computer can understand, right? Something that these tools can understand, or something that you can just type into Excel, right? What LLMs have been, we've used them for, that's really, really great, is taking that type of unstructured data and telling the LLM, hey, pull out the really important numbers here, and can you put them in a table format that I can paste into Excel? So data entry is going to be really, I think, transformed here because of these. And then summarization or complex search. So let's say you have content, you need some key points summarized, or you need some information found within that content. They're going to be great for that as well. What are they not so great at? Anything requiring judgment. So it's important to think of LLMs. They're not thinking. They're not using judgment. They're not using logic. They're literally predicting what the next letter or the next word should be based on some amount of input and based on their massive data set. So if you need a little judgment, if you need true understanding from a human perspective, so that's why I said they're not going to solve your marketing strategy. To get your marketing strategy right, you really have to understand your customer, their psychology, how, what their wants and needs are, how that interacts, how that syncs up with your organization and what you offer. This is a complex thing that requires understanding humans, right? LLMs probably aren't going to be great at that, maybe ever, but definitely not for a while, I don't think. They hallucinate, which means, I have that in quotes, that's actually a term in this space. They make things up often. I asked an LLM to find me, I hike a lot and I do a lot of outdoor stuff. I asked a ChatGPT to find me a backpack that had a breathable back, so my back didn't sweat while I was hiking. And it gave me a backpack that is waterproof and totally not breathable at all. It's like a sort of just a completely waterproof bag. And when I asked it where it got that in, I said, hey, that's not the right answer. And it says, oh, I'm sorry, just ignore that one. And then I asked it where it sourced that information, that backpack was breathable, that the back was breathable. And it just couldn't answer the question. It just kind of made it up. And they do that a lot. And then doing more complex tasks. So again, it's important, I think, to think of LLMs as this is a computer program plus a whole bunch of flexibility that we don't have with normal computer programs. So let's look at some examples that will help us understand what I mean by those things. So turning unstructured data into structured data. This is really, really amazing. So there's an entire industry of, obviously there's data entry, but there's an entire industry of companies that provide a service or software, or usually a mix of the two, that go out and check prices on other sites. So for example, Amazon probably spends millions of dollars a year on this, just scanning with bots, scanning the internet, pulling prices from competition. And then Amazon, you'll often see Amazon will automatically update their price when there's a sale on another site. A lot of that they're doing programmatically. That's actually a really difficult thing for a computer to do because websites are all formatted differently. It's sort of an unstructured data problem. And so that's what is really exciting about LLMs for this use. And I did this example where I went to Bing. For this example, I used Bing Chat. And Bing Chat integrates with ChatGPT in the back end. And so I asked Bing Chat, I said, can you visit this page and then provide me with an HTML formatted table with the following information? I'm looking for parking prices because we have a client that's an airport parking company, a nationwide airport parking company. And I was trying to pull out the parking prices for ATL Airport. And I told it, use these column names. And what I'm asking it for is a table, something that I could use in a website, literally copy and paste, Or I could copy and paste this into Excel. And I'm telling it the column names. I want a column for the lot name. You know, is it long-term or short-term? What's the price per day? And then the lot address. And what Bing Chat did is it went to that page, the ATL parking page. It scanned that page. And then it created this HTML. So if you know HTML, this is just the sort of the markup that structures a web page. It gave me this table, this table code that I could copy and paste into a website. And I'll show you an example of what that actually looks like next. This is what it looks like on the website. If you pasted that into a website, you could also copy and paste this into Excel, for example. So it went to the site, pulled this information. And what's interesting about this is this information is not on the site like this. It's not structured in this table. And this is something a computer now without an LLM would really struggle with. It would go to the site, see all this data in a format that is not predictable, not knowable ahead of time. And it would really struggle to pull out what the important pieces of information are. And in this case, it did it perfectly. It even pulled the lot address, which is actually not even on the page that's in question here. So let's take a quick look at this page and I'll show you what this looks like. So this is the URL I gave it. This is just ATL's airport, Atlanta airport. This is their parking page. And what's really remarkable about this and what's really cool about this is that it went here. And so you can see there is a table here with some rates on it. And some lots. It did a bunch more than just that. It noted whether they're short or long term. It noted price per day. If it's short term, it noted price per hour, and then it gave the address. And you'll notice none of those things are present in this table. It actually had to go through all the information on this page and sort of combine it all, aggregate it all into one thing, and then turn it into that table. And what's really cool about this is notice this right here. It says North hourly lot and South hourly lot. The table just lists hourly. So what's interesting about this airport is it has an hourly lot that's a north lot and a south lot. But even if you're a human and you go to this page and you look at this, you might think there's only one hourly lot, right? Somehow the LLM thinks there's two, a north and a south. And if you scroll down just a little bit, right here on the site, it says the north and south hourly parking lots. So it mentions a north and south hourly lot, gives the prices for those. So the LLM found that information, realized there's two separate lots that are both hourly, realized they both have the same price, and then separated those out into two lots because that's what I asked it to do, and a lot for each row. That's pretty amazing. I mean, that's like getting to the point where it's sort of thinking. It almost feels like thinking. You know, it feels like it's actually going through a thought process that a human would go through. In this result, I would actually not be surprised if a human could not get this answer. I would not be surprised if they looked at that table and said, oh, there's only one hourly lot. So this has like really incredible implications for data entry, for pulling that unstructured data, getting it into structured format. And LLMs seem to be really, really remarkably good at that. Use case number 2 here is summarization of existing content. So we see Amazon doing this. They're starting to test this in their reviews section where it says customers say, and then it sort of summarizes all the reviews with this summary. And they're using, I don't know what model they're using, but they're using one of these models, maybe ChatGPT, to go through all those reviews and then pull out a summary. That kind of stuff it's actually really good at. A similar need is any kind of research you need to do where you are sort of summarizing some other content, right? And that's a portion of our SEO process is actually like this. So if we had a client that wanted to rank for a keyword, you know, say dentist in Cincinnati or something like that, we would go search Google for dentist in Cincinnati, see what's ranking, pull those top sites, and then pull all the topics off all of those top sites into a list. And that's like a starting list of the topics that would probably have to be covered in order to rank for that keyword, right? Then we'd have a human go in who understands SEO, who understands the industry. We talk with the client and really get an understanding of everything and sort of modify it from there. But the entire first portion of that process can basically be accomplished with ChatGPT. And I'll show you an example of that. So I went to ChatGPT and I asked, I'm a dentist, I want to rank in Google for teeth whitening. Can you create an outline for an article that'll rank high in Google for that keyword? It says, yes, absolutely, I can do that. And this is the document. This is the content that it ended up giving me. Let me zoom in a little bit. So it broke down, essentially it did kind of what we would do. So if you think about it, ChatGPT has this huge database of content from the internet. So it has all that content that's online. That's similar to what we're doing. We're going to Google, we're searching this keyword and we're pulling from that online content all these ideas. So it's kind of following a similar process in a way. It's just not going to Google and searching. It's just accessing its data set and looking at what a lot of people are doing. And so it comes up with an outline. And what's really, really interesting about this outline is if you look a little closer down here, it's section 3, choosing right teeth whitening services in Cincinnati. One of the challenges, we've worked with franchise systems and that have 200 plus locations around the country. And you're trying to rank those individual locations in all of their cities or their regions or their states or something. One of the challenges with that is localizing all that content, right? You write an article here. Let's say this dentist had 100 locations around the country. Are you going to write this article 100 times and just rephrase it? That's kind of what we would use to, that's kind of the easy way to do this and what you might do. But you need to somehow localize that content. And this idea right here that it has, sharing testimonials of satisfied customers or patients, in this case for a dentist in Cincinnati, that is a really creative and smart way to localize the content on a page like this that, a lot of dentists aren't even doing that. It's a really smart way. It's something that we would recommend to a client. And ChatGPT came up with this all on its own in about 30 seconds. The other cool thing here is if we scroll to the bottom, it gives us a little guidance. It says, hey, include a contact form, include a map showing your location in Cincinnati. It says, use the keyword naturally throughout the article. It gives us some guidance on promotion. So we could literally take this output from ChatGPT that took about 10 seconds to create, send it to a copywriter, and then have the copywriter write the content for this page. And this would probably do okay. It's not going to rank for really competitive stuff. You would really need somebody to go through it and look at the competition and do a bunch of other stuff, but it's going to get you really far. And it was incredibly simple to put together. Another example we're using in the SEO field is bulk rewriting metadata. So metadata is the title. I don't know if you all can see the tabs in my browser window up here at the top of my screen, but the meta title, the title tag that shows up in your browser tabs is also what often shows up in Google. And then behind the scenes, you have a meta description. So these are just like SEO pieces of data for a given page that help Google understand and the other search engines understand what the page is about and how to rank it. So this is really cool. ChatGPT has a plugin called Code Interpreter, and Code Interpreter can take a file and do something with it. It can actually do a lot of data analysis. It can use Python to analyze the data. If you're familiar with Python, it's a programming language that that people often use in the data science space. So what I did is I crawled Harley Davidson's website and I exported a list of URLs and I put that into a spreadsheet. And then I gave it to ChatGPT and I said, hey, can you write the meta titles and descriptions for every page in this attached spreadsheet? And GPT says, yeah, I can help you. It gives me a little background. This is what's really cool about it. It gives me a little background. It says, all right, we understand meta titles need to be 50 to 60 characters. That's sort of the limit. Descriptions are 150 to 160 characters. It gives me a little more information, like concise summary of the page's content. And then it tells me, it describes the data that I provided. So these are the columns in the spreadsheet that I sent it, that I uploaded. And it's summarizing, it's guessing what each of those columns is. I didn't tell it any of this information. These are just the headlines in the spreadsheet, right? And it's sort of guessing what each of those means and then explaining those to me so that we can get aligned, right? This is something a human would do. You get a spreadsheet, you're not 100% sure that you know what every column is. You explain what it is, and then you send it back to the person that sent it to you, and you say, hey, is this what, this is the right structure, right? This is what you sent me. And they're like, yeah, go ahead. That's what GPT is doing here. And it asked me if it wants to, if it should proceed at writing a few of these. And so it takes a stab at writing the meta titles and meta descriptions for the first 5 pages in the document as an example to say, hey, am I on the right track, right? Something you would want a human to do if they were doing this task as well. And so that gives me an opportunity to review these, provide a little feedback if I want to. I actually did I provided a little bit of feedback. I think we went back and forth 2 or 3 times on this, and it ended up with this, which is pretty good. It's a pretty good summary of these pages. What's really cool here is this page 2. The meta description is just a list of sort of keywords, which seems like ChatGPT kind of botched that one. But if you look in the original file that I provided it, there's almost no information. It's a URL. It's a, and then there's like 1 or 2 heading tags on the page, and they have these words in it. And so it basically said, all right, I have very limited data to go on, so I'm just going to use the words that are in this row for the meta description. So it's using a little bit of it's using what it has, which is really remarkable. And so then it gives me a spreadsheet, an updated spreadsheet. So it takes my spreadsheet, edits it, puts all the stuff in it, puts all the titles and the descriptions. And now what I can do is take that and just paste that into my database. If I run this website, paste that into my database. Obviously, I'd probably want to have somebody review it. But we've had clients that have e-commerce sites with 3,000 plus products. And you're just, with a smaller to mid-sized company, they're just never going to be able to review and write metadata for 3,000 plus products, especially if those products are turning over quickly. You need some sort of automated solution sometimes for things like that. And that's where this is really going to shine. You can see here, I even asked it to add the Harley-Davidson USA brand at the end of every meta title. And so it said, all right, cool. I just updated that spreadsheet for you. And here's the new updated spreadsheet link. And I've got a link in this deck, which I can send out after that. You guys can see the actual spreadsheet that it created. Data analysis. This is really, really cool also. So that same plugin that I just used to modify or to write all that SEO data into the spreadsheet can also do data analysis, and it will use Python, which is, if you're a data scientist, if that's your job. My girlfriend's a data scientist, so she does this for a living, and she writes code in Python. That's a very common language for data scientists. It has a lot of extensions that help you process data, analyze it, create charts, things like that. So it's like, Excel on steroids. And so ChatGPT, the code interpreter plugin, will use Python. And what's really cool about it, not only does it use Python, it gives you the code that it's using. It writes the code in front of you, gives that to you. And so you can review it. You can say, oh, wow, if I understand Python, I can walk through this code and make sure it's actually doing it right, doing it correctly, and not skipping steps and not doing anything weird behind the scenes that I don't have access to. So that's really cool. So what I did here is we have one of our clients is Fast Park and Relax, airport parking company based out of Cincinnati. They have, I think, 17 locations around the country. And they had a question where they wanted to know, what is the average lead time that someone books parking? So, what's the average person who's booking parking? Are they booking 1 day in advance, 20 days in advance? They also wanted to know how that changed for holidays, leading up to holidays. And so FastPark sent us an export of all their bookings for a year, I believe. And we analyzed this data. Now, we originally analyzed this data back in 2018, and we did it ourselves. Recently, I uploaded this to ChatGPT, the code interpreter plugin, to see what kind of answer, like, would it come to the same conclusion we did? Would it use the same process we did? And so I uploaded that spreadsheet to a code interpreter, and it analyzed the data. And what's cool is what it does is it takes the spreadsheet and it first explains what it's seeing. So it says it appears the first 2 rows of the data set are not actual data. That's amazing. What this spreadsheet, it was totally raw. It was an export from their database, and I didn't do any edits to it. I didn't remove any columns. I didn't rename any columns. The columns have like kind of cryptic names. I didn't remove, there were like 2 header rows that had some information about the file, like the file size or something like that. I didn't remove those. I uploaded it raw. And ChatGPT understood the structure of the data. It said the first 2 rows are not actual data, so it's basically going to ignore them. Then it's saying the next rows are column headers. And so it took this very weirdly formatted file, and not only is it understanding it, but it's explaining it to me so I can say, oh yeah, that's right or that's wrong, right? And so it's then explaining which columns are the important ones for this calculation, which is just incredible. And so it then goes and runs the calculation. And what's cool in here, I don't think I'm showing that exactly, but what it calculates are the median lead times. And this is a discussion we had internally. So we had this problem with calculating this thing. What is the question you're actually trying to answer? You're not trying to answer the average, which is the mean lead time, because you have some outliers. You have people that are booking parking a year in advance sometimes, right? And whenever you have big outliers in data like that, you know, the average person, whatever they park, it's a few days maybe. But some people are parking 1, 2, 3 years, or 1 or 2 years in advance, are booking it. And so whenever you have massive outliers like that, it skews the mean. And so the mean is not a good number to use in that case. We had this whole discussion internally about this, and we went back and forth and we analyzed the data with the mean, and then we looked at it with the median, and we're like, okay, the median is probably what we want to do. I'm not showing it here, but ChatGPT had that whole conversation with me, where it said, you know, looking at this, I think we could use the mean. And it just explained all that stuff I just explained. It did all that for me in 10 seconds. It was amazing. And so I was almost just watching our whole internal conversation unfold about this data and the decisions we were making and all that kind of stuff. And it's landing on the same decisions. And it was incredible. And so the end result is that we have, you know, I ultimately asked it to break down the lead times by leading up to holidays. And so it gave me those lead times leading up to those holidays, and I blurred out some of the sensitive info here. But really incredible that you can upload this data, it will understand it, it will explain it to you so you can verify that it's understanding it correctly, and then it'll go analyze that data. And it came to the same exact answers through the same process that we did internally. So that's really, really incredible. There's a few more AI tools to explore. So the ones we just looked at were ChatGPT. That's a really popular one. That's the one with the code interpreter plugin that will analyze data. It'll also do other stuff. I haven't played too much with the other things, but you can upload other files. I think you can upload images. I think you can upload just other things, and it'll do stuff with files other than just analyze the data. Kind of like what we saw with writing the SEO data. But there's a few other tools you might want to explore. So Midjourney is a really cool image generation tool. And you give it a prompt, you say, hey, I want a logo for a coffee company. And it'll just automatically generate options for you that you can download. And it's been a little bit hard on text. So it's not been very good with text in the past. But they just released an update now where you can sort of edit the result to fix the text. So you can kind of tell it what you want the text to say. That's, for some reason, that's been a really difficult thing for these AI models to get right, is text. So Midjourney can now modify that text according to your input, which is really cool. So you could really come up with logo ideas. I mean, like if you're an interior designer, give me interior designs in this style for a living room, you know, and just get some brainstorm ideas. It's great for that kind of stuff. Another tool that's very similar to that is Adobe's generative fill in Photoshop. So if you use Photoshop, this is a function in Photoshop now. You can take a photo or an image or something like that, and then tell Photoshop to fill in some other section of like expand the image and then just fill this in automatically based on what's in the other part of the image. That's really cool. And the image AIs are remarkable. If you haven't used those, you should play with those and check. They're really remarkable what they can create. They've got a really, Midjourney in particular has like a really cool style to it. It's really interesting. ChatGPT Enterprise. So a lot of people wonder about data security and, you know, uploading your information to some random AI company on the internet. ChatGPT just released an enterprise version that has a lot more functionality and a lot more data security and a lot more privacy. There's also open source LLMs. So I believe Facebook has one out that you can run locally. So you can download the code essentially to your system. And then whatever you're putting into it, whatever you're getting out of it is not going back to, you know, OpenAI in the case of ChatGPT or any other company. It stays within your system. So open source tools are really cool for that. That's an overview of ChatGPT and the AI tools and LLMs and everything like that, and what we've been using with them. I figure we can, I think, open up for questions. Laura, sorry. If anybody has any. And if not, I can do a little demo of ChatGPT if nobody's seen that yet.
I think everybody'd like the demo, but I have a question. Can you take, from a marketing perspective, can you take information downloaded from you know, another database and have that analyzed? I mean, I think you can, but you know, for instance, we have a you know, a chamber master which handles all of our member information and attendance and, you know, what people have been interested in and that type of thing. So do you have to put that in a spreadsheet to download that, or how would you do that to put that into you know, AI to see if it can analyze it for you? Because the problem with our system is that the analysis is very, it's not AI, so it's very cumbersome, and you have to go into each category and look for the information. Do you understand the question?
Yeah, I think so, Dan. Yeah. So I think I believe you have to upload a CSV or a spreadsheet or something like that. You could write some sort of code that links a database sort of directly to ChatGPT. I haven't done that yet, but what we've done is, you know, if you have an external database, if there's a way to export that to CSV or to an Excel, you know, to a spreadsheet format, essentially, if there's a way to do that, then it's really easy to upload. If not, you'd have to write some sort of link using code.
Okay.
Any other questions?
We have
being
we have a question on Facebook. And I'm trying to get back to it. I think she said, it won't let me see it. How do you charge for this service?
Oh, how do we charge? Well, so the AI, the tools I've shown you are totally separate companies, right? You can go to ChatGPT right now, and I think it's $20 a month for the premium version that'll allow you to analyze data. You can use it, you can start playing with it for free if you want to. We use these tools typically as a part of our marketing effort. So analyzing data for clients, you know, figuring out what campaigns are working, you know, sort of speeding up the campaign process, speeding up creation of paid search and speeding up SEO and just making that a little more streamlined. So we use these tools as a part of our marketing efforts. So, you know, if clients hire us to do marketing, we typically just bill like on a project basis or a retainer basis. But no, I mean, if you want to go play with any of these tools yourself, Midjourney, I want to say I think Midjourney is free to explore. You can get a premium version for $60 a month. ChatGPT, like I said, I think the premium version is only $20 a month. And then I think if you use a lot more data, so if you're uploading and if it's generating a whole lot of stuff, there's a usage cost, but the usage cost is fairly low until you hit a certain scale. So you got to use it a lot to really, I mean, they're incredibly cheap right now.
Okay. Yeah, she just said, is it a cost-effective tool for people to get started for like a small business?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I said, ChatGPT is free right now. Midjourney's free. You can pay for the premium versions if you want, but you can start playing with it and explore it and see if it's something you can use at almost no cost.
Okay, I have another question on Facebook too. She said, do you run the risk that competitors will use the same copy?
Yeah. So, yep. So typically when ChatGPT, if you're gonna, let's say you're gonna use ChatGPT to generate content or something like that, like a blog post, you know, that's probably going to be something a small biz is going to do. And if you do that, you've got a couple risks there. So one is that, yeah, your competition could be doing the same thing. They're probably going to get a different answer. So when they ask ChatGPT to do this, if you go into GPT and you ask it the same question twice in two different sessions, you'll probably get different answers. So you'll probably get a different result. You know, it's in Google's interest, it's in everybody's interest to sort of notice when automated content is being created. And you'll see when you play with these are great for facilitating the creation of content, making the process smoother, making the process faster. I wouldn't necessarily advise using them to create content from scratch and then just using it as is. That could get you into some trouble. But it's not a bad place to start for sure.
So John, would that go back? And I know that we have people want to see the demo. Would that go back to, so it really is a tool. It doesn't really replace. So you can't just like sit back and have, you know, ChatGPT write your everything for you and you just pass it off. So you'd still have to take a look at it and say, is that how we really want to present it? Is that what we really want to say? You know, all that type of thing. So it's, I think people are afraid about AI is totally replacing humans. But you still have to have, I would think anyway, that you still have to have some human interaction to say, did this work? Does it make sense? Is that what we're really trying to accomplish?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you need a human monitoring things. And I think a really good example of that is how, at least right now, I'm thinking about like the trucking space. So, you know, Tesla, I believe it is, and a few other companies are really pushing to get AI-driven trucks, semi-trucks on the road, right? And there's obviously some concern that that's going to replace all the truck drivers, and this is a major job in the U.S., truck driving. I don't know if it's going to replace jobs, truck drivers. There may actually ultimately be more truck drivers as a result of those being on the roads. Because if you think about it, if the cost to ship goods becomes so much cheaper, we're going to ship a lot more goods, right? We're going to ship a whole lot more goods. It's just going to facilitate commerce in a much larger way. And so if we're shipping a lot more goods because those goods are cheaper, it's possible we can have more truck drivers on the road. It's just every truck driver is going to be driving 4 or 5 trucks with the help of AI, right? I think it's kind of the same thing. You know, we're probably going to have more people doing a lot of these things because these things are going to make a lot of what we already do a lot cheaper, faster, easier. And because of that, we're going to do a lot more of that stuff. So, you know, content writers, I don't think we're ever going to replace content writers. I just think content writers are going to do a lot less of the work they don't really necessarily like doing, right? A lot of like the grunt work, the research, the, you know, pulling data and figuring things out. They're going to do a lot more. They're probably going to move up the chain a little bit and do a lot more editing and stuff like that, right? Managing tools like this.
Considering AI touches every industry, and marketing touches every industry too. John, you mentioned that you work with a parking garage client. Who are some of your other clients that you work with, or from what industries?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll try to skim up to our one of our earlier slides that lists some of our clients, but we've got a pretty broad range. Let me exit the thing here.
Okay, I must have missed that. There we go.
Yeah, we've got a few listed here. You know, I mean, we've worked with Tarani. It's a pretty common. Their products are behind pretty much every bar in the country. Delta Faucets, some banks. You know, Union Savings Bank, Valley Star Credit Union. Invisible Fence is an invisible dog fence company. We've worked with some universities, Ohio State, Xavier, UC Health, some hospitals. It's a pretty broad range for us. Our sort of niche client is anybody looking to drive some sort of measurable result and then measure that result. So we're not really a branding agency necessarily. We're not totally a design agency. You can see LPK is listed here. We partner with LPK on some work because they're a really world-renowned branding firm, and we fill the sort of technical piece that helps their clients do what they want to do. But it's really anybody who's looking for, digital marketing with some sort of measurable result, like generating leads, driving sales directly.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
They seem
All right.
kind of quiet. John, do we get to see the demo?
Yeah, let's take a look at the demo. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. If you have trouble seeing the screen, just let me know and I can zoom in a little bit further. This is the dentist teeth whitening example. I'm going to start a new chat over here. And so this is ChatGPT. If you want to go here, it's chat.openai.com. If you can't read that URL, you can also just Google ChatGPT. And you'll have to sign up for an account. You can do a lot of this stuff for free. I have the paid version, which adds some functionality. And then up here, you select your model. So GPT 3.5 is like a slightly older model, but it's also faster and cheaper. GPT-4 is a newer model. It's a lot smarter, but it's also a little bit slower, and it's also a little bit more expensive if you're using it at scale. And then you can select some plugins, which are really cool. So this is the advanced, they're calling it advanced data analysis. It used to be code interpreter, but this is the thing I was using to analyze data. And then there's the default sort of setup. So we can ask it any question, like let's say let's go with an SEO question, right? Let's say we're that dentist who wanted to write an article on teeth whitening. We might say also, all right, well, we also want to write an article. Maybe we do orthodontics as well, and we want to have an article on braces. So I might say So if you can't read that, it says, I'm an orthodontist in Cincinnati, and I want to rank for the term braces in Cincinnati in Google. Can you provide an outline of an article to do that? And it just answers me sort of in real time. It's kind of cool that it types as it's thinking here. And so it gives me an outline of this article. It says, all right, here's the introduction, brief background. I love here, again, back to my point earlier about localizing this content, because I said I'm an orthodontist in Cincinnati, and it's giving me ways to localize that content for Cincinnati, which is really important if you're trying to rank in Cincinnati for these keywords. Why choose us, the process of getting braces, case studies, FAQs. I mean, it's really quite a robust response for SEO. This is as good as anything our team would put together as like a first step in the research process for SEO. And you can see it's given us a little guidance and that sort of thing. Some other things we can do, let's see. We could ask it to, one of the things we could do here is we could say, all right, we've got the introduction. Can we expand on that? Oh, we hit a little bug there. Let's say, can you write the introduction for me? So now it's going to go write the introduction, and it has the history. So it understands this is all, like my conversation history with it is now part of its data set for this session. So not only does it have all this training data that it did, it looks like we're having a little bit of a bug here, but not only does it have all this training data that it was trained on, which is like all this content on the internet, but it has my conversation history with it also. So it kind of remembers what we were talking about and what it said earlier. Let's see if we can get it to do this. There we go. Okay. So, and it wrote that introduction, and that introduction should follow this. So background on braces, prevalence of orthodontics, introduction to your practice and expertise, vibrant city of Cincinnati. You know, it talks about Cincinnati and the Ohio waterfront. It kind of followed that outline pretty well. And so I could take this, you know, and this might not be a terrible introduction to use as is or with some slight modifications, right? It's great if you want to use the content where you can use the content as it comes out of ChatGPT is on things like this, like an introduction, right? It's like we all have to write introductions, but it's not the meat of the article. There's probably not a lot of facts in there. It's just kind of warming us up for the rest of the content. That's where you could use this, you know, almost as is with some minor edits. Particularly for tone, you know, if you're an organization and you want your tone to match the tone of all your other marketing, that's where you'd really want to get in and modify it, because ChatGPT typically won't hit your tone perfectly. But I could do something as cool as this. So one of the things it has, this is where the training comes in. So you can actually train these models on your own data. So I could, through the API, take a bunch of, let's say, social media posts that I've written. Let's say I have 3 years of social media posts. I could take those, send those through to the API as a training set and say, I want you to match the tone that I've used in the style of all these posts, and then write me like 100 new posts. And it'll go and it'll use that data to adjust the way it outputs what it outputs in a tone that's a little bit closer to what you originally wrote in your past social media posts. So, and I'll give you an example of that. Since we're not uploading a training set, what we can do is talk about somebody like really popular online. I'm thinking like in the marketing space, there's a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk who writes a lot of stuff. So ChatGPT would have all this history of his stuff that he's written and his content. And so it would have that for the training set. So I could say, you know, this is great, but can you rewrite the intro in the style of Gary Vaynerchuk? Not sure if I spelled that right or not. And so I don't know if you know who Gary Vaynerchuk is, but he's got this very extreme high energy, you know, work hard, get it done, you can do anything type of thing. And so you can see it's rewriting the intro in that style, and it's actually pretty good. It kind of sounds like what you would expect him to write. I tried this with a few other people that are pretty well known online. It has to be somebody that is fairly well known online. It has a lot of content, which is probably already in ChatGPT's training set. But you, like I said, you could do a similar thing with your content if you uploaded it all as training data. You do have to go through the API to do that, though. So that's pretty cool. Let me see. Does anybody have anything they'd like to see or anything they want me to ask it? I could ask it some of the questions we just asked. So let's ask it, would it be a good idea or bad idea to use the content you're writing for me as is on my website? Let's see what it says.
Hey, John. Monique said that something you could put in after this is why visit Hamilton, Ohio?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a great one. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's this is cool. This is really useful the way it presents this. So it's not telling me what I should do. You know, should I use the content as is? It's giving me pros and cons. Right? It's telling me what are the pluses and negatives here. So that's really useful. What did we say? Why visit Hamilton, Ohio?
Yes.
Why should I visit Hamilton, Ohio? Let's see what it says. Let me zoom in a little bit so everybody can read this. So it's talking about historical heritage, arts and culture. It's talking about actual places in Hamilton. River's Edge Amphitheater, Miami Woods. I'm not familiar with some of these places. Outdoor adventure.
It's spot on so far, I think.
I mean, what I know, it seems pretty accurate. I mean, that's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty good. You might take this and modify it, right? This is where you might go in here and say, yeah, those are great options, but we really want to talk about, you know, there's a museum that is specifically you got to see, or there's, you know, this park that isn't listed here that is really great, right? There's a little bit of a human touch that would, that understands the area in a way that GPT doesn't. And all GPT is doing is taking this huge training set of all the content on the internet. So think about all the blog posts that have been written about Hamilton, all the news articles about Hamilton, all the websites about Hamilton, anything that's available online. It's kind of taking all of that and trying to guess what the likely response is that you're going to like the most, essentially, right? And so it's great at that if that's what you need, right? But sometimes you might not need that. And a great example is if you were, you know, I bet somebody who works in Parks and Rec might have some better recommendations here, might have some recommendations that, you know, nobody thought about or nobody published online or something like that, you know, and they know that from working in that. Same with SEO. You know, we one of the things we do is SEO. ChatGPT can give us SEO recommendations, but they're going to be somewhat generic. They're going to be things that you could find pretty easily through a Google search. They're not going to be things that are cutting edge or remarkable, typically. Right, that typically requires a level of expertise that the GPT is not going to have. But I mean, this is great. You know, if somebody just asked a question, hey, you know, what should I see when I'm in Hamilton? This would not be a bad thing to send them.
John, that's definitely amazing. I think AI is an amazing tool that we're going to continue to learn about and be using for forever, probably. Super exciting to see how quickly some of this data can come back and how easily it can be transformed to any format you need it in. This is amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Andrew says, and free. Yeah, that's even the better part, and free.
Yeah.
Or super low cost, even at $20 a month. That seems to be a bit of a bargain.
Yeah, it's remarkable how, yeah, it's the barrier to entry on these things is really low. And they're kind of fun. You know, the other thing you guys should try out is Midjourney, the image generation tool. It's a weird sign up process. You have to like sign up for Discord, which is like a chat app, and then Midjourney is like a chat room within that chat app, and then you sort of chat to the AI in a way. But it'll create images, and it's just really cool what it can create. I've seen some really remarkable stuff.
Well, we're about out of time for today, John. Definitely want to thank you and Andrea for taking some time to chat with us today. Andrea says there's a Canva version too if Midjourney is too intimidating. Well, we can check that out. I do love Canva, so always a good opportunity there because that's also free. Super low cost if I ever have to buy anything from Canva. Definitely love it. We'll be back in a couple weeks. Our next coffee is scheduled for Tuesday, September 26th, 9 a.m. back here on Zoom. Any last questions for John or Andrea? No, y'all off quiet today. So this will be on our Facebook page. We'll post it to YouTube later today, so you can always go back and resource it later if you want to share it with anyone. Feel free to do that. And we will see you all in a couple weeks then.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good
Thanks,
day.
guys.